Hello and welcome to today's feedback on the 2018 Eduqas Component 2 paper, the first couple of questions. I asked you to do these questions to practice what we learned about weather, climate and ecosystems. So the first question features a map of the carbon cycle. And if we look closely at the key, we can see we've got stores of carbon and flows of carbon. Now stores are where carbon is not moving, it's staying in one place. Excuse me, and flows of carbon is where carbon moves from one store to another. Looking at the options we've got, so we've got four different options that need to go with these letters: respiration, photosynthesis, burning and decomposes. Again, if we go back to this, we've got one store and three flows. So one of these is a store, the rest are flows, and that's an easy way to work out one of them for certain. Respiration, photosynthesis and burning are all kind of verbs. They're all sort of actions, things that can be done. Decomposers are groups of usually microorganisms that destroy things, they break them down. They're not an action. They can decompose, which is an action, but decomposes is not. So that's an easy way to work out that actually B is going to be decomposers. Burn fossil fuels, releasing CO2 into the atmosphere. Something along those lines is going to get us that extra mark, but we have to, don't know what I've done there. We have to add that in to get that extra point, okay? Just simply saying burning fossil fuels will get us 1. We need to explain how that affects the carbon cycle to get 2. Let's have a look at the next question. So before we get there, we've got this graph. One feature of climate is temperature, so how hot or cold it is. Global mean temperature changed during the last 500,000 years, so the last 500,000 years we've got there. Now, we've got mean temperature, average temperature on the left, on the y-axis, and we can see it goes from 4 to 14. We've got the time down the bottom. Now, interestingly, we used to normally see 0 on the left-hand side, but in this case it's on the right-hand side. This is years before present, so before now. So 500,000 years before present was longer ago than 200,000 years before present. 0 years before present is now. So we're here, and going left you get older and older and older. It says describe how global mean temperature has changed during the past 500,000 years. So how has the temperature gone up, down? How is it different in the past 500,000 years? Okay, we often say when you're writing about questions like this to use the TEA structure, trends, examples, anomalies. You can do that, but remember that's kind of 3 points. This is 4, so we're going to need something extra in there. So let's talk to begin with though about our trends. So we can say overall the globe weighted. If something fluctuates, it means it goes up and down, it varies, it doesn't stay the same, and that's absolutely true. We can see there's sort of spikes and troughs, peaks and troughs in this graph, so that in itself is probably going to get us a mark. For example, and then we need to find an example of where this has happened, so we could say it 400,000 years ago the temperature was that tell us about it. Okay, if you were to write something like global warming and how humans are warming up the planet, you would not get any points because it says one natural cause, and global warming is a man-made cause of climate change. Let's have a look at the next question. Before we get there, we've got this graph, okay, and it's a climate graph. We've got precipitation, which is the word we use for water coming from the atmosphere to the ground. In other words, rainfall, but also snow, sleet, fog, hail, all the different ways that water gets from the air into the kind of ground, basically. Sometimes it doesn't hit the ground, as we remember, it gets intercepted by plants, but that movement of water from the atmosphere to the ground is what we call precipitation. Then finally we've got temperature on the other side. Temperature is how hot or cold it is. I said finally, I don't know why, didn't mean to, because we've got time down the bottom, so the months of the year. So we've got how wet it is and how hot it is on 2 scales. Helpfully, they've colour-coded it, so we can see precipitation is in blue, that's the bars, and the temperature is in red, the line. On a climate graph, you'll always see, if it's drawn correctly, the temperature as a line and the precipitation as bars. That's always the way. We then have to work out which of these statements is true. It's always a good idea to go through them in order, going through all of them even once you've spotted the 2 correct ones, just to check that you've done it correctly. The warmest month of the year is August. Is that true? Well, August is here. However, if we look at the red line, it's not as high in August as it is in July. So that statement is false. There is twice as much rainfall in August as April. So we're going to have to work out how much rainfall there was in August and how much was in April. In August, let's see now. So the bar is halfway between 120 and 160 millimeters. Now we want to work out how much each of these boxes on the scale is. Easy way to do that, start at 0 and go up to the next one, so 40. Well, how many boxes are there? There's 1, 2, 3, so 4. 4 boxes, 40 divided by 4 is 10. So each box is 10 millimeters. So August is 2 boxes above 120, so that means it's 140. April, let's count the precipitation here. So it's 1 box lower than 80, so it's going to be 80 minus 10, 70. So 70 times 2 is 140, so there is twice as much rainfall in August as in April. And we minus the minimum, and that will give us the range. So the maximum temperature is 2 boxes higher than 20. Let's work out the scale. In this case, there are 4 boxes up to 4 from 0, so again, each box is 1 degree. So 20 plus 2 is 22, and the minimum, let's see, it's going to be either December or January. Well, they're actually the same. So we have to be careful here to make sure we use the correct scale because we're doing temperature. Even though we're all the way over here, we still have to go back this way. Is 1 box lower than 8, so that's going to be 7. So 22 minus 7 is 15 degrees. So that statement is false. It's not that one. The average temperature range is not 22 degrees, it's 15. The annual rainfall range is 170, so we have to repeat the process and find out what the range is. So the maximum rainfall is in January, it's the tallest bar, and again it's 10 millimeters lower than 200, so that's going to be 190. That's our maximum. Our lowest rainfall is September, and that is 2 boxes high, so that is 20. 190 minus 20 equals 170. So the correct answer is the annual rainfall range is 170 millimeters. And that's our next mark. Okay. The last question I asked you to do then, it says climate varies in different parts of the UK, explain why. Really important here to focus on why. I had some people who wrote a lot about how it was different in Scotland to Cornwall, but that's not going to get you marks. We have to focus on the why. So there are many reasons. And I'm just going to list as many reasons as I can. So latitude, aspect, air masses. And so latitude is how far you are from the equator. At the equator, we're going to have to be quite concise here. We're going to have to write quite quickly and accurately because we've not got time in our exam to be writing pages and pages. At the equator, sunlight radiated over a small area. Further from the equator, sunlight is less radiated over the same larger area. So hopefully you remember the diagram that I drew in class where we had the Earth as a curve, or as a ball I should say. The sunlight hits the equator and is spread over quite a small area. Sunlight that hits towards the North Pole, the South Pole, is spread over a much larger area. Okay, this means that, so we're developing this statement, it is so areas in the north of the UK will than, let's just scroll down for you, areas in the south. Okay, if we've got time, I would talk about another factor. There's plenty of videos all about how climate is different. We don't just have to talk about temperature. We could talk about things like relief, rainfall and altitude, and that would get us marks. This question is not marked in the same way where it's, oh yeah, you made a statement, have another point. It's worked on a banded system. Talking about 2 or 3 factors in detail should get you 6 out of 6, provided your answers are all correct. So, having watched this video, you need to rewind, find your work, and go through your questions, making the corrections that you need to ensure you've got the right answers in your notes, and that you're practicing the correct way to answer them, and you're practicing the correct information as well. Thanks very much for your time. Hope you found this really useful. Any questions, let me know.